Well, the first poem that I got published was in a literary journal called 32 Poems, and that was when I was in my second year as a master's student at the University of Florida. So I had already been writing poetry for at least 3 or 4 years. So it was pretty incredible to get told that a poem that I had written just a year before was being picked up in a journal that has a pretty good reputation. So it was nice to kind of get out of the gate with a bang and get a poem picked up in a really good journal. But I think as soon as it happened, I thought, why haven't I done this earlier? So, I mean, I think obviously we're all trying to write and submit and get our work picked up. But I think there are people who are a little bit more determined and take the submission process more seriously, and that's something I had to learn once I got published the first time. It's almost like I got hooked and was like, oh, I want that to happen again and again and again, and in order to do that, I need to be more serious about submitting. It definitely honestly took some of the pressure off of submitting. I learned that there are so many people out there trying to get their work published that no one's going to laugh at your particular poem. No one's going to remember something weird you accidentally type in a cover letter or something. So it made me just more, I think, relaxed as a submitter, as an author. And then also just much more kind of enthusiastic about the world of literature and what people are producing. I get to see so many great stories and essays and poems that cross my desk, so many almost there kind of submissions, and get to write back and have a relationship with authors to work on editing their piece, and sometimes, not a lot, but sometimes we'll send back almost there kind of rejection to an author, and then they'll revise it and send it to us and we've accepted it. So that's really exciting. I think some of that comes with age. So I think sometimes that growing process of kind of breaking your own rules as you understand them, to breaking the rules of poetry as you understand them. I think some people are better at doing that more quickly, but I think for me, definitely, I was in high school when I started writing poetry, and I just wanted to make sure that what I was writing was close to being maybe as good as some of the stuff that was considered amazing. So I think you're chasing that dream for a while as an early writer, and then once you start to figure out your voice a little bit better, once you start to read so much that you can see how many different kinds of poetry there are, once you figure out what stories you need to tell versus just what maybe you feel like is a good subject for poetry, then it becomes fun. Then you get a little bit more confident and say, like, okay, I'm gonna do this thing that's a little wacky that I haven't seen other people do, but maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that means there's a place for that. Being published in Loris and other undergraduate literary journals are a great first step to getting published in another journal. Your competition as someone submitting to Loris is obviously less than it would be if you were sending something off to the New Yorker, for example. And it does everything that the experience of a bigger literary journal does. You get to see your work in print, you get to work with editors, you, I know, get to even perform and read your work. You get to send the copy of the journal to your friends and family and brag about yourself. And all of that stuff, I think, gets you hooked. It gets you kind of understanding your role as a writer in a bigger, kind of more public way. So I would definitely encourage my students to submit to Loris. I think it's a wonderful thing that UNL has. Not every university has a student literary journal. As an editor, we glance at the cover letters and we want to make sure that people have some experience in the world of writing. And oftentimes that experience is the evidence for that experience is different journals that they've been published in. And so one of the great things about being published in Loris is that it's a name like any other name, and if you drop it into a cover letter, what it tells that next prospective editor is that your work has appeared somewhere before. So, while it may not be as challenging to get into Loris as it is to get into the New Yorker or the Atlantic, by the time you are putting together materials to submit again to maybe an even more prestigious journal, what matters is that your work has appeared in print elsewhere, and that you understand that process, and that you're engaged in a bigger writing community. I think they're great. I think they're taking off. I'm seeing more and more of them in a way that I think is absolutely necessary. I know students now coming from the undergraduate to graduate school, so finishing a bachelor's degree and going on to a master's. Although I didn't have any publications when I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I know some students now do, and that's giving them an edge when they're trying to get into graduate school. So why not? I mean, I think if you start writing poetry when you're 7, or writing poetry when you're 12, or in high school, it's important that you have access to getting your work published. And places like Loris and other places are providing kind of younger or more emerging writers those opportunities. Hang in there. It's the submission process is a game. I mean, poetry is not a game. Creative writing is a wonderful outlet for creating beautiful art, but submitting can often feel like playing the lottery, where you're giving it time and energy into something and then finally getting a reward. So hang in there, because it's worth it. And once you get started, I do believe it gets a little easier every time to get something published. If you are building up a publishing track record, you become more and more kind of credible on paper, and people want to read your work because they trust that you've been doing this for a while.